Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Gary's Record Collection. This time out, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about Led Zeppelin II, a classic album in its own right. But what we're going to do is talk about the hot mix, the RL hot mix. That is the Robert Ludwig hot mix. What is the Robert Ludwig hot mix? So in 1969, after Led Zeppelin was hugely successful, the band went on the road, and then while they were on the road, they recorded Led Zeppelin II. When the album was delivered to Atlantic Records, the tape comes to the USA, and engineer Robert Ludwig engineers it for pressing at the various record plants. And so what he did is he took the tape, put it on a machine, he cut the lacquer, cut the plate or whatever it is that they make the albums from, and they went into production. Come to find out, a lot of people were returning the album because it skipped. And if you remember the times back in the days of vinyl, it's like, you know, there was bad pressings, and there was defects in the vinyl and everything, and so you'd have a skip. Well, what was happening here was people were complaining that so many people complained, and especially, apparently, the daughter of Ahmet Ertegun, who was the man at Atlantic Records. He's the founder, the co-founder of it. His daughter got an album that skipped. And it's like, here's a guy who owns a record company, is putting out product that appears to be defective. So what they did was they went back and realized that Ludwig, the engineer, had the levels up too high, and when he made the master for pressing. And then all of those albums had to be recalled, and then he put out subsequent pressings that were lower in volume. So we're going to take a look at some of these different ones. I actually have a Robert Ludwig hot mix. I actually have, I don't know, 5, 6 different Zeppelin albums, Led Zeppelin II albums. So we're going to go through them. I'm just going to point out like on waveform. So what I did was I sampled basically the same exact thing from Whole Lotta Love. It's coming out of the middle section with the noise, goes into John Bonham's drum break, and then Jimmy Page's guitar solo, and then the rest of the song into that vocal break solo Robert Plant right after that. And also when I did all of these, I took each one of these albums, put them on a turntable, the same gain, everything. I did not touch anything going from album to album, so there was no processing, no changes in levels or anything. I just wanted to put it on. We're going to look at it. We're going to look at each of them and see what the differences are and the similarities. So here we go. We're going to open up. We've got a lovely program, Adobe Audition. I'm going to do a little housekeeping here and get me over there so you can see me, because clearly that's what you're all here for. And it's, of course, Led Zeppelin II. So I'm going to start with the one that I actually got, the first version of this I got, and I'm going to refer to it by the catalog number. This is 19127, and that's where the little number is here, right on the album cover. This was a reissue done in, I think it was 1977, Atlantic Records, with all the Led Zeppelin albums, the first 5 through Houses of the Holy. They took all the old catalog numbers, got rid of them, put all new numbers in, and they're all sequential. So Led Zeppelin 1 was 19126, this is 127, Led Zeppelin 3, 128, and so on and so forth. So this is the album that I had when I first started. So here we go. Here's 19127. This is the waveform of it. And let's watch the levels over here, you'll see on the right-hand side. And you can see that the levels are peaking at like a -6 on the left channel, and on the right channel it's a little bit lower. Okay, so that's not bad. That was the one that came out in 77. Then a few years ago, about 8 years ago now, they had the reissue of all the remastered albums. So let's go back to that. And you can see clicking in between the waveforms, there's a little bit of a difference. You can see a little bit of a shift. and I look at in between, you can see where the drums comes down, bump, bump, and there's like this a very low level. Sometimes you can see that low level will change, like the 2014 reissue. It's a little bit higher. So what they may have done was they brought up the overall volume of the song and then just cut the top part down. So they're just kind of taking it like this and then kind of smashing it together a little bit like that and just making it louder. So here's 2014. And you look at that left channel, and again, it's peaking right at about -6. That's not bad. It seems pretty consistent with the other, the 19127. The right channel is a little bit lower. Not bad. All right, so what about the hot mix? The hot mix. This is the one that I have. I have a copy of the hot mix. This is the one that, and by the way, how do you tell it's a hot mix? Why did I call it a Robert Ludwig? Because if you look in the matrix right around where the label is in the dead space, there's a catalog numbers in there, and then there's a little RL in there, and that signifies that it was a Robert Ludwig engineering. So here is Robert Ludwig. Now remember, our left channel peaked out about -6, and the right was a little bit lower than that. Here we go. And you can see on those hits that's going up to like a -1 dB, about 5 dB higher than what the other albums were, 4 to 5. So it's not really surprising that these albums had problems with the turntables in 1969. Not everybody had a turntable that was, the highest audio fidelity. Sometimes they were mono turntables. Sometimes they were like toy turntables, basically. So anything. So then no wonder that a lot of these albums had to be returned for a different product. Okay, so that's great. So what did they do instead? So they took that out and they put out the next album that they put out was in the Matrix, has AT for Atlantic Records. Now look at this waveform. This is the same exact what we've been looking at before. Look how compressed this is along the timeline. Let me go back. Here's the hot mix. Look at that. That's gigantic. Here's the AT mix. Now let's listen to this and see where it goes on the meter. You're at like -12, -13. And it looks like the channels are actually reversed. Maybe not. No, the channels are not reversed, but that right channel is actually louder than the left channel. But overall, 6 dB down from the just what we would call regular, and probably 8 to 10 dB down from the hot mix, the Robert Ludwig hot mix. So after that, then Led Zeppelin II became super popular, and they started putting out the next versions of this. They put out with a gold award sticker on the cover. So I've got a couple of these, and one of them, AT Gold, that I have listed here by Atlantic Records, doesn't look bad. Let's take a listen. Now it looks like it might be pushing the envelope a little bit. It's a little bit higher than -6, but and I think actually this one I had to skip in this song too. So maybe their second, the gold version was not the best. I do have another gold one with CTH in the matrix, and this is it. And now look at this level. This is way down too. You're peaking at a -12, -10, where all those others are at -6. Now the interesting thing here is, like, you think when you go to the record store and you buy an album, you're going to get a great sounding album. But just look at these 6 different examples here of the 6 different ways that these records are completely different in the volume and the overall fidelity of the albums. You've got some that are just super blasting loud and some that are compressed and more quiet. But what's real? I mean, that's the thing. So you look at the 2014 reissue, and we probably assume that that's going to be as close to the master tapes as possible. That was the intent, at least. But yeah, so the Robert Ludwig hot mix is just off the charts. It was just, the levels on this thing are crazy. And you can see that it's like in the yellow all the time and just blasting up into the red, just with the vocals too. It's running way hot. Now I mentioned how you could see what the hot mix was by looking at the matrix for the RL. And there's one other thing too to look at, which I actually did not realize until I did a little bit of research in this. This is, we're gonna look at the album here. What I want you to look at is the space between the last song and the run out and the label, right? So you've got this space. This is side 1, right? I took a ruler to it, and the measurement there of that space is 1.2 centimeters. Okay? All right. Well, that's great. It should be consistent on all of them, right? Because it's one groove, it's the same music and everything, right? So I'm just going to pull another one. This is the one of the golds. This is the one that I call the Kathy Lyons because it has actually her name on it. So whoever owned it was Kathy Lyons. But you do the measurement on this, and it's 2 centimeters instead of 1.2. So they actually, the hot mix, the louder the music is, it's like the wider the grooves have to be. So over the course of 15 or 18 minutes of a side, that hotter mix just made that a little, so they were really, it ran a lot closer to the album or the label than some of the other mixes eventually did. So the Robert Ludwig hot mixes are expensive. I don't know. I got mine at a decent price, I must say, a few years ago. And I mean, the record's not in the cover's not in the best of shape, but I got it because it was a hot mix. I was in North Carolina a year ago, and there was a record store selling one there for $300. So I've seen them go higher even. So there is demand for them. Vinyl aficionados know what it is, know what the Robert Ludwig hot mix is. And what you really need to do is, if you're looking for one, chances are, I mean, the record store, if you go to the record store and they have some Led Zepp 2s, they'll probably have already looked, because if you go onto a website like Discogs, all of the pressings are going to be there. It'll tell you what plant they were pressed at, if it was in Jacksonville, or if it was in Atlantic Records in New York, or if it was in Indianapolis in Terre Haute, or if it was, RCA or whoever. All of that information is buried on there, and it's all on the Discogs database. So my guess is that if somebody brings in a bunch of records to the record store, they're not just putting a sticker on them and putting them in the bin. They're actually looking at the record, looking at what is what, and putting the appropriate price on there. And if you happen to find an RL on a Led Zeppelin II, especially if it's an RL on both sides, that's an original Robert Ludwig pressing, and if it's at a decent price, I'd say grab it, because you're not going to run across them at low prices anymore. They're moving up in value, and they have been for a long time. So there you go. Led Zeppelin II, the Robert Ludwig hot mix. Just another part of Gary's record collection. We'll see you next time.